joined, which is
And please say hi.
yeah. As is one of my trainees, actually. I finished training him a couple of months back. So
okay, so it's 4 minutes past noon. I think we should start, and I ask you, Ron, to introduce yourself and take your floor.
No, thank you very much, Victor. I'll share my screen first of all, and just make sure that everything is okay. The first question everyone asks when they start a webinar like this, can everyone see the screen? But I'm not going to get all the 70 or 80 people that have registered so far saying, yes, I can. So fingers crossed, you can all see the screen.
I can see.
Okay, all right. So this is my first PM versus CM session of 2022. I've done 19 others in last year. I did most of Asia, I did a number of Middle East chapters, and I did a number of African chapters as well. So I thought this year I would go into Europe. And I tried that last year, but there wasn't much interest. But this year there's been a lot more interest. So, and I'll be posting a lot of information on LinkedIn about the different sessions that I have, etc. So if you keep a lookout for those, I've got 5 definite so far, and about 15 other chapters considering. So you are number 1. Well done, PMI Budapest Hungary chapter. Thank you very much. Okay, let me introduce myself first of all. Who am I? But you're probably thinking, who's Ron Lehman? I've never heard of Ron Lehman. Quite a lot of people haven't, but hopefully you will know who I am after I finish today. I'm the owner and founder of a small boutique consultancy called the Highway of Change, and I live in Thailand. Okay. On 6 o'clock here. I've been in the business of change and transformation, probably you can see by my white beard and white hair, for over 4 decades, 40 years, okay, which is a long time. But I'm still enthusiastic, which is a bit strange. I've worked across the length and the breadth of the UK, many European countries, never Hungary though, and internationally in excess of 20 industry sectors, and have change managed over, I put 25 different technology solutions, but they vary, probably more than 25. I'm a consultant online. I'm a trainer online. I'm a blogger online. I'm a speaker online. All the stuff I do now, I've moved my whole business model online, because being here in Thailand is a little bit out of the way. So, you know, to try and get a global reach, it's easier to do it online than face to face. And travel is a little bit. Right. In June 2012, I was presented with a Change Leader of Tomorrow Award, World HRD Congress, in recognition of, and this is my words, not theirs, my remarkable progress in initiating changes enough for others in the same industry to follow my example. That was 2012, and it's nearly 10 years ago. I'm also the founder of an organization called the Institute of Change and Transformation Professional Asia, which caters for the Asian change and transformation community. Okay. And that's still an ongoing project. Been going for about 2.5 years now, so but it's still ongoing. Right, what I'll do now is I'll just very briefly take you through the workshop content. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to provide you some context, about. I'm then going to talk about what the actual difference is, what I change management. I'm then going to very briefly go into the different types of roles and responsibilities that a project manager has and a change manager has. I'm going to give you some personal examples just to sort of, give you a bit more detail about the roles and responsibilities. I'm going to give you some personal examples of roles and responsibilities that I've actually undertaken when I've worked in collaboration with a project manager. There's a big discussion at the moment about integrating the two disciplines, and I'm going to talk about that at some length because I think that's a very important. I'm then going to go into a little bit of history, if you like, about the Project Management Institute and how their line they take on change management, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the latest PM version 7 as well. And finally, I'm just going to talk very briefly, last few slides, about project success and failure, and how you can make it successful and how a project sometimes fails. So that's the content. So I think Victor mentioned this. If you've got any questions, can you please record them in the chat function? And what I will do is I'll go through them at the end of the session and try and answer them as best I can. Okay. I'll promise to be able to answer all of them, but I'll try. Okay, are you ready? Again, I probably can't hear you say yes, but I'm going to take it that you are. All right, let's go. As I said, I'm going to provide you now with some context. So first of all, from which perspective am I going to be speaking about project management? Obviously, as a change manager, I'm going to be discussing the issue from a change management perspective, okay? Having said that, I used to be a project manager. I'm still a fellow of the Association of Project Management in the UK, but I've kind of changed sides. I did that a long time ago, to be honest. Project management versus change management is an ongoing debate. It's been debated many years. I actually first wrote about this in an article which I published on LinkedIn way back. And it was going on before then, otherwise I wouldn't have published the article. The article had over 17,000 views, 200 reactions and 63 comments. Kind of good in those days when articles were still okay on LinkedIn, and they don't So if you want to read it, just go to my profile and look through the articles, but you'd have to scroll down about. Okay. There's also a question about what kind of change management I'm going to be talking about. There is the change management project type, which is managing change requests, ITSM, a process where project changes are identified, documented, analyzed, and decided, and they're approved or rejected. Or there's the change management organizational type, which is managing the people side of change, which is a structured approach to transitioning individuals, teams, and organizations from a current state to a future state over there. I'm going to be talking about that one because there's been some confusion in previous sessions where people thought I was going to be talking about the project type. Singapore session.
Ron, sorry to interrupt. I hear you quite lagged, so sometimes I can't hear what you say. Maybe in a position your mic isn't working well.
Yeah, I think it's not my. I don't think it's my mic. I think my Wi-Fi is not brilliant, and I've had this problem before. So,
Ron, this is Laszlo. Please switch off your webcam then.
Please what?
Switch off your webcam. The camera.
Where's my webcam?
I stop your video now.
Okay.
We see your picture. Okay.
All right. So hopefully that'll help. Sorry about that, but yes, I've had that problem before. Okay. So let's see how we go. Okay. So the type of change management I'm going to be speaking about is organizational change management, which is managing the people side. Regardless of type, all projects are change projects in one way, shape, or form. But what is the difference? Yeah, it's a bit like chalk and cheese. What's the difference between project management and change management? Okay, let me go through that first of all. Traditionally, projects are run by project managers. But there is a fundamental difference between PM and CM. Project management is about installation. It focuses on a plan around events and timelines with the aim of getting from a current state, no installation, to a future state, installation achieved. Change management is about adoption. It focuses on, obviously, the people side, as I said before, of change, with the aim of getting all of these critical mass of people to be committed to the change that's happening, the new ways of working, to learn new behaviors, change their mindsets, and sustain them willingly. ProSci, I don't know whether you've heard of ProSci. They are the probably the biggest change management trainers globally, and their certification is much sought after. Their view of the difference between project management and change management is they say project management focuses on tasks and activities required to create and implement the technical solution, and that it is designed, developed, and delivered effectively. Change management, they say, focuses on impact by a project or initiative to ensure that they embrace, adopt, and use the solution associated with the change. So, two very distinct types of roles. Unfortunately, when there is a situation where there's a project manager and a change manager working together, their views, their approach and so forth is sometimes not necessarily aligned to each other, which can be an issue for the project. Demonstrate, let me just show you. So you have a project, okay, and you have a go live situation on a certain day. Have activity that goes as pre-go live, and you have that. The PM, as you will probably all appreciate, being project managers, they work to the 3 time, cost, and quality issues. Okay, but change manager working, as I said, they also work on a project. And from my experience, it's mainly about communications, training, delivery, business readiness, a lot of other things, but, you know. Now, once the project goes live, from the project managers I've spoken to and the project managers I've trained, there is a tendency to say, much. I've done my work. I have delivered what I'm supposed to deliver. The solution is in place. I've finished. I now want my next project. However, the change manager basically has rafts of work to do post go live. So they work on people adopting the solution, because that can't really happen until you go live. They work on people using the solution. There's a difference there. They work on benefits realization, which normally happen. Change manager can continue to work on a project for maybe up to 3 months, 6 months, yeah, just to make sure that all the adoption and usage and benefits realization is taking place. So that's the reason there's not a lot, they're not aligned, okay? Right, from a blog in, I think, it is way back in 2019 by Suzanne Madsen, who's a project leadership coach. I emphasize that. The blog was called "What are the 3 biggest mistakes that project managers make?" And she says, number 1, managing tasks and events at the expense of leading people. The most common mistake project managers make is that they are more concerned with tasks and events than with people and the human impact of the change, often unknowingly. Many project managers have a very, very rational, very logical and an analytical way of thinking. She further goes on to say they're good at facts, calculating duration, coordinating activities, and making rational decisions. They are task focused. They see their primary role as delivering what the customer has asked for within the agreed parameters of, again, I repeat, time, cost, and quality. And I'll be using that phrase probably a few more times during this presentation. Their strengths is in executing and following somebody else's vision and specification rather than helping to define. We've got over 100 participants now, which is great. Thank you very much. All right, let me try and explain what the difference is. So we're going to start with a very high level, a very, very simple view of the difference. Project management, what they do, what it does, it prepares the solution for the organization. Whereas change management prepares the organization for the solution. Two different things. A little bit more detail now, and I'm going to carry on going into a little bit more detail for the next few slides. You have a PM and you have a CM, okay? Oh, this is obviously assuming they're working on the same project. The PM prioritizes solution, the CM obviously PM manages time, cost, quality. I told you I'd mention that again. The CM manages adoption, resistance, and engagement, and a whole host. The outcomes for a PM, solution delivery, as I said, by that other slide, where you have a go like that. Time, it's on cost, it's on quality, etc. I've delivered it. Whereas the CM specifically works on making sure that people adopt quite a few months after the project delivery, the project go live date. Right, a bit more detail now. Okay, number one, change management is only an idea, unlike project management, which is the development. Project management has a timeline. Obviously, project plan, while change management can go on for however long is necessary, but hopefully we work to a timeline as well. Number three, change management needs many ideas to make one vision, while project management just needs the one vision. The go live date is their vision. Change management is structuring the vision. Yeah, this is what we want to look like when we get to where we want to go, while project management is creating the milestones to get to that vision. Project management already has a defined goal, as I said before, go live, while change management goals, unfortunately, in my experience, can change at any second. Project sponsors throw all sorts of things at change managers, and I've been party to many things that they've that hasn't been in the job description, as they call it, that they've asked me to do. So it's a never-ending job. Okay, a bit more detail. Let's have a look at some perspectives, the different perspectives from a project manager and a change manager. So, project manager sees the organization as a structured hierarchy. A change manager sees the organization as a loosely connected group without structure. Project managers is expert at dealing with plans, resources, and data, whereas a change manager is expert at dealing with people and behaviors. A project manager performs at their best when faced with certainty and predictability, a change manager with ambiguity and unpredictability. Project manager concentrates on the time horizon of, while a change manager goes on well beyond go live.
Sorry, Ron. This is Laszlo speaking. I apologize, I have to stop you. We are having some technical difficulties with your internet connection. Therefore, I would like to suggest the following solution. If you don't mind, please stop sharing your screen now.
Yeah,
and please email the PPTX file to Victor. Then Victor is going to share his screen. And you are going
Okay.
to give him instructions saying, I'd like to see the next slide, and so on and so on.
Okay.
And in
Okay.
this case, we can save some bandwidth on your end because it looks like
Right.
something is wrong with your internet
Yeah,
connection. Although we tested it, everything was
well,
okay.
I
And
know we tested it.
internet is just like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that. And let me pause the recording for a minute.
What I'll do is just say, what I'll do, Victor, is I'll just say arrow down, arrow down. Okay. So arrow down. So the project manager concentrates on the time horizon of up to go live, whereas a change manager, as I demonstrated, goes on well beyond go live. Next one, arrow down. Project managers, arrow down, are rewarded for delivery to time, cost, and quality. And change managers, great, thank you, Victor, for business readiness and user adoption. Next one. Project manager deals with facts and figures, whereas a change manager deals with perceptions and emotions. Next, project manager deliverables are primarily tangible, whereas a change managers are tangible and intangible. Next one, project manager takes an approach which drives a straight line between A and B, whereas a change manager kind of navigates the path of least resistance. And finally, a project manager primarily needs to be structured, whereas a change manager needs to be flexible. All right, next slide, please. And finally, let's go through some toolkits. You have a change management toolkit and you have a project management toolkit. So in the change management toolkit, you have, and just press arrow down all the time until we get to the list, bottom of the list, please. Victor? Oh, here we go. You have a change management methodology. Next. You have a readiness assessments. Next. You have communication plans. You have sponsor roadmaps. You have coaching plans. You have usage and adoption. You have training plans. You have resistance management. And you have reinforcement mechanisms. Whereas the project management toolkit, and it's the same way as last time, you have a statement of works. You have project charter. You have project initiation document. You have a business case, work breakdown structures, Gantt chart, budget estimations, resource allocation, and finally, scheduling and tracking. So as you can see, both toolkits are strictly quite different, to be honest. All right, next slide, please, Victor. Right, I'm going to talk about roles and responsibilities now. So moving on, next slide. Let me explain some different roles and responsibilities between that of a project management and change management. Just one hit of the arrow down, please, Victor. You've got defining the project scope, you've got managing resources, you've got scheduling work tasks, you've got managing issues and risks, and then you've got cutover and delivery. Whereas on the change management side, same again, please, Victor. You have project communications, you have stakeholder management, you have business readiness, you have training management, and you have usage and adoption. So yes, there's only 5 there comparisons, but hopefully you can see that the comparisons are strictly quite different between project management and change management. Okay, next slide. And we have different skill sets. Unfortunately, leaders often undervalue the distinct roles of these 2 management subjects. Arrow down. Project management is a business decision enabler, whereas change management is a people behavior enabler. Next arrow. Change management, let me give you some ideas of their skills. Works on change sustainability and integration. Next one. Communicates progress and impact. You're doing a good job here, Victor. Manages people side risk. Next one. Focuses on people side strategies. Follows change management life cycle. And manages and motivates people. Whereas on the project management side, You have drive solution delivery. It focuses on, guess what? Time, cost, and quality. I've got quality, I've got scope in there as well. Manages technical risk. Manages the project from start to end, from end to end, from start to end. Follows project management lifecycle. And finally, delivers a project solution. Next slide, please. Okay. Let me give you some personal examples now of the roles and responsibilities, just to emphasize what they are during 3 projects I was involved in collaboration with a project manager. So next slide, please, Victor. Example 1, I was an IT change and communications manager for a major head office move of GlaxoSmithKline in Singapore. And I developed and delivered all the IT related communications and change for that relocation. Arrow down. My responsibilities were developing the change strategy, learning, planning and delivery, communications planning and delivery, stakeholder engagement, change impact analysis. Next, the project management responsibilities were managing the project plan, project and milestone reporting, infrastructure planning and implementation, risk and issue management, budget management, and technical change management. Example number 2, please. Right, same structure as before. This was an SAP implementation. Again, it was in Singapore for a crane company called Manitowoc, and I managed all the communications, training, and business readiness activities. And it was an Asia SAP implementation into Singapore, Australia, Korea, and the Philippines. Next one. My responsibilities: business readiness monitoring, communications, training and development, user acceptance test management, process and organizational design, and stakeholder management. The project manager's responsibilities were managing the plan, managing the project team, gap fit analysis, data management and cutover, training planning, and cutover and go live planning. So there was kind of an overlap with it between training planning and training development, but apart from that, the roles were quite different. And the final example, the 3rd example, I was called a business process change manager to develop a target operating model for what was then Orange, is now Everything Everywhere, as a mobile operator in the UK. And they were using SAS Business Intelligence Analytics, and they wanted a new target operating model for their technical infrastructure. So what I did as a change manager, my role: organization realignment, business process capture, stakeholder engagement, communication, education and training, and business readiness monitoring. Whereas the project manager managed, obviously, the project plan, project governance and reporting, infrastructure and environment planning, risk and issue management, business requirements, and code management. So there you have 3 examples of where I've worked in collaboration. And as you can see, the change management responsibilities and project management responsibilities were clearly different. Okay, what I did with all 3 of those projects, and normally what I do in a project, I act as the conduit between the project and the business. So arrow down, please, Victor. So you have a change manager who sits in between the project team and the impacted stakeholders, and they act as the conduit between the 2 teams. Arrow down, please. So think of it as a pipeline which you can switch on and switch off. So what the project team, as an example, if they want to send out a communication, normally it's fairly technically orientated, it's got a lot of 3-letter acronyms and so forth. So the change manager says, well, let me have a look at that. They look at it, they change the communication, and they then rewrite it so the business, the impacted stakeholders, can understand it. And also, it goes the other way. You know, sometimes the impacted stakeholders ask questions, and the change manager acts as the conduit to get answers to the questions from the project team. And it works very well. You can be a member of the project team as well, but you can still act as an independent conduit, if you like. So next slide, please. Right.
I'm sorry, I just hit end button. So.
I was confused then.
I try to come back.
All right, down. Okay, the case for integration. Okay, arrow down. So, as I said at the beginning, there's a lot of, there's big moves now for what they call a hybrid role or integration, the integration of change management and project management. And, you know, will it work? Will it work or won't it work? I'm not sure, but let me give you my views. So next slide. There is the case for integration. So because project management and change management, we absolutely contribute a critical ingredient to successful change event through the very various terms and focus and approach. Understanding how each discipline works alongside the other is the first step in achieving what I call a unified value proposition. And it will give you the strongest foundation possible for your change initiative. Next slide. Both change management and project management support moving an organization from a current state, how things are done today, through that transition state to a desired future state, which can be new processes, new product, new systems, new organizational structures, job roles, or maybe all of them. It depends what you're implementing. If you're implementing something like an ERP system, it will probably impact all of those, yeah? But again, we want to do the same things from the as-is, current state, through the change to the work, to the future state, the to-be. Next slide, please. Integration, though, begins with role clarity, but there is a complete lack still, even now, today, between the role of project manager and change manager in many organizations. And this is in my experience, obviously. Besides confusion around role clarity, there are many other barriers to project and change management that you should be made aware of. Arrow down, please. So first of all, even today, even when, I mean, the first change management methodology was developed in 1940. Yeah, so it's 60, 70, 80 years ago. Yeah. Even now, though, the discipline of change management still seems to be in its infancy stage when you compare it to the project management situation. So we, whoever, change management professionals are still very much in the early phases of trying to convert those people that either don't understand change management or don't want to understand change management, or just think it's a nice to have. Next one. Since the role of the project manager has expanded, and it has expanded, certainly reading through PM Box 7, and this might be a slightly contentious statement, most project managers do not have the capacity or capability to learn change management because of all the other things they have to think about. And as I said, I'll be going through a few slides on PM Box 7 later. Next one, please. Change management is not easily measured. Remember, I said we focus on tangible and non-tangible. So we've got a lot of non-tangible stuff like changing mindsets and behaviors, etc., you know, which you can't really put into a project plan. So it's not easily measured. And since the results are often intangible, like I said, so executives, unfortunately, who control budgets sometimes struggle to justify the expense, and they fail to get behind change management efforts. We don't need change management. We've actually delivered projects before with project managers and they work fine. That's the kind of attitude. Next slide. No, not next slide, next arrow. So while project management, yes, has been ingrained very, very deeply within the fabric of most organizations understand project management, no problem. When you say you're a project manager, people know you're a project, they know what you mean. Change management is still struggling for a seat at the C-suite table, yeah? There's no change management representation at a higher level. You've got chief information officers, chief executive officers, chief technical officers. You can have chief project officers, etc., or program managers. But where's change management at that level? Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to show you the results of this. What was it called? A survey, sorry, done by Prosky. I mentioned Prosky earlier on, and they asked during their ProSci change management webinars. They asked a simple question, and this was ongoing over a few years, and it said, "How well is change management and project management integrated in your organization?" Slide down, please. Arrow down, please. So you've got extremely well through to extremely poorly, and you've got 0 to 50%. Arrow down. 4% said extremely well. Next, 12% said well. Not very good, is it? 16%. Acceptably, 34%. Poorly, 42%. Extremely poorly, 8%. So, so you've got, next one, you've got 50% there saying poorly or extremely poorly. Next one. And you've got only, how many is it? 16% saying extremely well and well. That's quite old. That information, that survey, those surveys are quite old. So I decided to do one myself. Yeah. Next slide, please. So same question, how well is change management and project management integrated in your organization? And I did this survey in 2021. Same scale. Number one, extremely well, went up from 4% to 9%. Well, went up from 12% to 17%. Acceptably, went up from 34% to 41%. Poorly, went down from 42% to 24%. Extremely poorly was kind of level, only a percent between them. It went up for some reason. But anyway, so what that demonstrated to me is that 33% instead of 50%, and the next one, it was 26% instead of 16%. So what that demonstrated to me was, when I redid the survey, was we have moved on considerably in terms of integration or hybrid, whatever you want to call it. Next slide. So how do you go about integrating? So there's 5 steps for integration. It all starts, obviously, with educating people. Yeah, okay. Informing leaders, stakeholders, hang on a second, Richard, stakeholders, project managers and project team members that the benefits of change management is critical to project success. You have to set specific expectations as well around how change work is done, and acknowledge that change management is actually also, in a lot of cases, based on insights gathered through data. We also work with data. We can work on communication data, business readiness data, usage and adoption data, training data. We work with data. So, you know, we're not completely intangible. We do work on tangible stuff. Next one, please. Use consumer-friendly language, as I kind of intimated when I showed you that slide around being the conduit into the business, when describing the change process and work efforts, because the process for change management, as I said, is still in its infancy, in a previous slide, may be viewed as unnecessary to the people that don't understand it. Yeah? Next one. Fourth one, ensure project management and change management synergy by presenting a unified front to project leadership, stakeholders, and team members. Look as though you're working together. You should be working together, but you know, act as though you're working together. You want the same results, like I said before. You all want to achieve the same successful go live, usage adoption, etc., etc. Next one. And finally, collaborate. with the project manager and key stakeholders to embed some kind of change methodology, can be internal, external, doesn't matter, and subsequent deliverables within a master project plan and status reports. Next one, please. Right, but there's a big question. It's a conundrum. Can just one individual be both a project manager and change manager, or should they be two different individuals? I don't know. Anyone know the answer to that? Let's carry on. Next slide. CM, my view, this is my view, a CM and PM model of working in partnership is the way forward. Next, arrow down. PM with a responsibility for change management, or conversely, a CM with a responsibility for project management just puts too much pressure on an individual. And they may not, as I said before, necessarily have the right experience and skill set to manage both elements. But of course, there's a lot of dependencies there. It depends on things like project size, impact, and budget, to name but a few. Next. From CIO, they kind of agree with my previous slide. Next. They said, while project managers maintain complete focus on overall project objectives with the goal of ensuring stakeholder value, change managers should not only attend project meetings, but also be an integral part of the project team, which they can be, even though, as I said, they can work independently as a conduit into the business. Next one. Collaborating provides a holistic approach, overall approach, and ensures absolutely that the impact of people can be sufficiently addressed. And it also inevitably creates a smooth transition in terms of processes and the acceptance of the solution during and long after the project is complete. And the next one, overall, organizations should encourage change management and project management professionals. Again, I repeat myself, to work closely together to ensure project effort and change are sufficiently adjusted to reduce the impact on its people. Next slide. From Logic 20, December 2020 article called Change Management Trends to Watch in 2021, but it's now 2022, but hey, who cares? By Mary Beth Gibson, who is the Director of Program Management for Logic 2020. Next. Trend 3, she says, is change-driven project management. That's an interesting title. Next. She says, the earlier change management can be rolled into project planning, the greater the project's overall chances of success, with which I fully agree, especially in our current VUCA environment, where you know at the moment the pace and the volume of change requires absolutely total focus and special consideration. An early start enables the change management team to build flexibility into their scheduling. Next. And project managers would do well to address change management as early as possible into the work with a team on weaving communications and other measurable tasks into the schedule, even as other aspects of the project are still progressing. Next one, please. But how do you choose? How do you choose whether you need a change manager and a project manager, or a project manager with change manager skill sets for your project? So I picked this up from a PMI chapter, I think, in the US somewhere. I can't remember which one it was, but it's a very simple model. So starts with, next, bottom, degree of behavioral change, low and high. Next. And supportive culture and or leadership, strong or weak. Next. So if you have a low degree of behavioral change, yet you have a strong supportive culture, you can probably use a PM with some CM skills. Next. If you have a high degree of behavioral change and a strong supportive culture, you can get away with a PM plus strong CM skills, or a PM plus CM skills. Next. If you have a low degree of behavioral change required, but as a weak supportive culture, you can get away again with a PM and strong CM skills, or a PM and a CM. And finally, if you have a high degree of behavioral change, sorry, a high degree of behavioral change and a weak supportive culture, you will need a CM and a PM, definitely. Very simple model. It's just a starter. Okay, carry on, Victor. It's fine. I have a suggested model and how the partnership would work. So if you just like to press the next one, you have a sponsor. The sponsor is in charge of either a steering board or program board. Reporting into that program board or steering board is a project manager, and also reporting into that is a change manager. Those two work together, yeah, in collaboration. Okay. Next, the project manager has a project team. The change manager has a change team. Sometimes, in my experience, I've sometimes worked on my own, sometimes worked with 30 people, but normally you will have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people. Next, then you have the business, yeah, who you're doing the change to. And what I'm saying is that if you've got a change team that isn't very big, next, you can have a number of change agents. Next, have a number of change agents to act, to help you as your conduit into the business. And these change agents will come from the business, and they will probably be middle managers, etc. And they will help the change team, who in turn helps the project team, to make the implementation as smooth as possible. It's just a suggested model, very high level. You can switch it around and play with it as much as you will. So next slide, please. Okay, right. So sort of drilling down now to, hopefully you will finish sort of on time. The Project Management Institute and Change Management, what's their view? What's their view? What's the Project Management Institute's view of change management? Next slide, please, Victor. There have been, since 2005, a number of papers from the PMI to PMI conferences. 2005, Organizational Change Management and Projects. Next one. 2005, OCM, Organizational Change Management, the missed connection. The next one, Project Management or Change Management. Who should be managing organizational change? That was in 2008. Next one. In 2011, work preferences of project and program managers, change managers, and project team members. Next one, 2013, integrated change management, which we just talked about. And then finally, from academia, summaries of new research for the reflective practitioner, project management and organizational change. So they've been talking, the PMI have been talking about change management for a long, long time. I think there's even stuff before 2005, but I thought I'd just give you those a selection. Next slide, please. Right, in the PMI practice guide and in the Pulse of Profession, next slide, next. In the practice guide, 2013 this was, so it's a bit old, it says organizational change projects are the 4th most common type of project undertaking, but only 20% of organizations adopt a formal organizational change management practice. Interesting. Next. Studies show that organizations achieve a higher success rates by using standardized portfolio, program, and project management techniques in concert with rigorous change management approaches. Next, in the Pulse of the Profession, Enabling Organizational Change 2015 through Strategic Initiatives, it says, projects and programs by their very nature create change. I did say, remember that every project is a change project. To successfully implement organizational strategy, companies need project and program managers with the skills to drive and navigate change while ensuring that those changes are strategically aligned to business goals. Next. The success or failure of a change initiative is not just about initiating, planning, monitoring, execution, evaluating the project that will drive the change. Okay, right, next one. Right, BPM back 7. I've got to say, this was I haven't read it all, but this was quite a read. However, what I did find It was out of 370 pages, only a part of section 4, which was pages 161 to 164, relate to change management. Okay, very low percentage there. Next page, next slide, please. In section 4.24, entitled Change Management Models, next, they say many projects contain an aspect of changing systems, behaviors, activities, and sometimes culture. Managing this type of change requires thinking about how to transition from the current to future desired state. There are many models that describe the activities necessary for successful change. Next slide. Let me just go through the models that they actually talk about. 4.2.4, managing change in organizations. It's an iterative model that is based on 5 common elements across a range of change management models. Next. ADKAR, which is ProSci, which I've talked about before. It focuses on 5 sequential steps that individuals undergo when adapting to change. Next one. Kotter's 8 steps for leading change. 1998, I think this was developed. ADKAR was Kotter was 1996, ADKAR was 1998. Kotter, it's a top-down approach where the approach to change starts at the top and is then promoted downward. Next. Virginia Satir, I must admit, I've never heard of this one until I read PM Book 7, and I know most of them. There's about 50 change models, by the way. Virginia Satir change model. It's a model to help team members understand what they are feeling to enable them to go through change efficiently. And finally, transition model. It's a model that helps to understand what occurs to individuals' psychology when the change takes place. Right, next. My view, so what? Big deal. Following a change management model does not necessarily guarantee you a successful change outcome unless you know what sits behind the model. So just quoting a few models doesn't really achieve a lot, to be honest. It helps you with understanding that there are change models, but it doesn't help you with change management and the approach to change management and what you should do in change management situations. Next, also in the PM Box 7, there's a table 4.1, and what they do is they map the models that I just went through likely to be used in each performance domain. And this shows that change management models have been mapped to only 3 of the 8 performance domains. Next. So in stakeholders, next, in planning, and in project work. So 3, but I consider change management should be relevant in all of those domains, especially measurement, especially uncertainty. Yeah, absolutely should be relevant for all of those domains. Next. All right, very quickly, project success and failure. How are we doing for time? We're just on the hour, okay. Next. Again, going back to a survey, and there was a survey done by a company called Beyond Strategy, which was about 8 years ago. And this asked 2 simple questions. Next. One question was, how important is project management to change success? And the next one was, how important is change management to project success? Next. First one, 25% said critical. Next, 68% said necessary. And the rest said nice to have. In the other question, how important is change management to project success? 48%, nearly double, said critical. Next, 43% said necessary. And finally, the rest said nice to have. Next slide. Again, that was 8 years ago. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I meant to say, yeah, so it was nearly double. Okay, so that was 8 years ago. But again, I like to keep up with my data. So I did my own survey once again. And this was done in April 2021. I asked the same questions, exactly the same questions. And these were the results. First one, project management to change success, critical, 34%. Very important, 40%. Slightly different scale I use, but never mind. Next one, important, 20%, and the rest were nice to have. Whereas the other question, change management to project success, critical was 64%, very important, 24%, important, 8%, and the rest was a nice to have. Down again, once again, nearly double. So what does that tell you? That tells you there's still the same understanding that change management is extremely critical to project success. Okay, next, project success and failure. Back to ProSci again. So this is kind of the way they sort of conjured it up. Basically, they say that success measurement focuses on the technical side of change elements, primarily, and I haven't used this for a while, but time, budget, scope, achievement of outcomes. Next, they say, in some cases, the intended results and outcomes take a secondary role behind time and budget targets. In terms of change management, they say success measurement focuses on the people side of change elements, including adoption, usage, proficiency. The achievement of outcomes, they say, because results and outcomes depend on individuals adopting to change, this is the primary focus. So change management has a primary focus on adoption. Project management has a primary focus on go live, time, budget, and quality. Next. I think we're nearly there now. Again, sorry, I keep on quoting ProSci, but they've got some interesting data. They say without change, this is the data they've gathered from their webinar. So they say without change, employees feel surprised and overwhelmed by change. That could result in failed project results. Number 2, that could be extended project schedules. Number 3, that could be additional project costs, Number 4, and a very low adoption and usage. Whereas on the other side of the house, with change management, employees feel prepared and supported for a change, which they say makes it 6 times more likely to achieve objectives. Number 2, makes it 5 times more likely to stay on schedule. Number 3, 2 times more likely to stay on budget. And finally, number 4, increase of people-dependent ROI. And that ROI is the number of people that adopt and use the actual solution. Okay, next. Thank you. That's it. And I do apologize for the problem with the internet. I'll have to get that checked out. I mean, everything seems to be working fine before, and as Victor said, it worked fine before when we checked it out. So I don't understand. Maybe it might just be the number of people who were on the call, to be honest. Next slide. Are you there, Victor? Okay. What I'd like, please, if you would you please complete my survey? If you could scan that QR code with your device. But what I will also do is I'll also put a link to a few other things of mine that you may be interested in into the chat function as well. And so if we could just leave this up here for about, say, 30 seconds. And again, once again, I do apologize, really do, for the technical problem. But hopefully, well, not hopefully, but Victor did a great job. Yeah, it was like we were working in tandem with each other. So once you get to know the flow, it actually works quite well. Just a few more seconds for you to scan that barcode. And then we'll get on to the questions. All right, just the last slide, Victor, please. That's it. Thank you very much. And you can stop sharing now, Victor. So you're going to stop sharing, Victor. Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm about to stop it.
Yeah, okay. All right. I've still got the main screen up. And I can't, I'm just trying to start my video and I can't start it. If you want me to start my video, that is, to answer the questions. Okay, I've got it now. Okay. All right. So I hope that was of interest to you. What I'll do is just go into the chat function. The first thing I'll do is I'll just copy and paste in those links I said I would copy and paste in for you.
And meanwhile, I'd like to ask everyone to write your questions in the chat window.
All right, I'm just going to now, what I'm going to do, Victor, if that's okay, I'm just going to go through the chat window now to have a look at the questions and see whether I can start answering them. All right, so sometimes Ron's voice cannot be heard. Yes, we know about that, don't we? I can answer that question. Does not seem to be a lag, but rather a mic issue. Interesting. It's very hard to focus. Okay, sadly, poor audio quality.
I think you can read the questions from Laszlo's message here.
All right, here we go.
Copy,
if you have any, right,
the...
okay, I've got it now. Yeah, okay. Back again. Right. If you have any questions, great presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do you see, first question, do you see business transformation as a latest buzz phrase or as a form of real change management initiative or something third? I'm glad you asked that because as I said, I've been working in change and I'd also call it transformation for 40 decades. For 4 decades, 10, 40 years. 20 years ago, I have to say that I was involved in projects which were major transformation projects. They were digital transformation projects. One was a core banking solution for the corporate bank in Warsaw in Poland, for a bank called an Austrian bank, I think, called Raiffeisen Bank, which completely changed the way the bank, the corporate side of the bank would operate. It was a digital transformation, even though it was a banking solution. The other one, I was involved with a UK government organisation where they were implementing what they called an electronic briefing system, which meant that all of the briefings that departments provided to ministers of that government department would be centralized rather than fragmented into their own little files and folders in their own departments. So it was a centralized briefing system with a standard format, etc. That was digital transformation. So digital transformation is a buzzword. But having said that, people tend to not think of change management together with digital transformation because they seem to focus a lot of their mind on technology. If you want to have a view, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, I have an article that I wrote, and I think it was called something like change management is, digital transformation is change management the key to success. That will give you my view on change management and digital transformation. Digital transformation is change management. It's the same, yeah. It's the fact that digital transformation just seems to focus on things like, robotic process automation, AI, learning, and all the other buzzwords that are coming out. So yes, I think it's a buzzword. That's my personal view, okay? I hope that answers your questions. Right, next one. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have any suggestions or tools on how to improve the adoption part? Yes, I do. And I'm going to quick plug for my training. I do have training and I talk about usage and adoption, and there's various ways to manage usage and adoption. Normally you can manage usage and adoption are two separate issues, by the way. Okay. And again, if sorry about it, but if you'd like to get my view on use in adoption, again, I've got an article on my LinkedIn page called Usage and Adoption, the Holy Grail of Change Management, or both. I think it's something like that. And again, that describes what usage is and what adoption is. But yes, there are lots of different measures you can use for adoption. Normally, any solution that's implemented will have some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, log that sits behind the solution. I know when I did a role for Salesforce in Indonesia, their solution, their two applications had already had adoption and usage log that sat behind their solution, their application. So you could choose from a menu to say, what do you want to measure? We want to measure usage during the day. We want to measure adoption over the week. We want to measure who hasn't logged in, etc. So most applications will have something that sits behind it that it will enable you, to actually measure adoption and usage. Like ERP systems, you have to have a login. You know when people are logged in, okay? And arguably, I think it also knows when, what kind of different sort of processes it goes through, different pages, etc. So it will be there. It's just a matter of tapping into it and getting that information. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Do you have it? Okay, done that. In one of the slides, there was a responsibility of code management for PM. The code management, it was for the actual coding for use of their SAS business analytics. The situation, just to explain the situation, it was you had a business area that traditionally were responsible for both the business side, so that's all the analytics, the customer analytics, and the technical side. But because they wanted this new target operating model, they wanted their technical team to take over the technical responsibility of the technical stuff that the business team were using. So there was an issue around coding the SAS BI analytics in a slightly different way, because the new technical team, it had to go onto their infrastructure with wanting to use the new technical processes in a slightly different way. And that was the difference in coding for the SAS BI analytics. Okay. Thanks for the presentation. I have to leave for the next meeting. Thank you. Is it possible that the acceptance and usage of CM is because the lack of well-understanding KPI? Yes, it is. People don't understand the, I think I mentioned this during the presentation. We do work with data, and we can prove whether we're successful or not. If you, I put a link into my YouTube channel into the thing. If you go onto the YouTube, if you go onto that YouTube channel, there's several videos on there that all talk about different ways of measuring change management. We talk about adoption and usage, we talk about measuring communication, we talk about even measuring mindset change. So there's a lot of stuff now that we can do as change managers to implement KPIs, and even benefits management, which is not kind of traditionally a change manager's role, but I've managed benefits management. And you've got the KPIs in the business case. So all you do is you take those KPIs and then you reproduce them as benefits targets. So there's a lot we can do. But yes, people still don't understand the fact that we work with data. And there's also a lot of new dashboard type tools being brought onto the market, for change management. I'm not fully on board with that. And again, I've written an article about, are we in danger of dehumanizing change management? because I believe if you've got a dashboard, you probably spend more time on creating wonderful pictures and graphs, etc., for the program board or steering group than you do on actually working with the people to get them through the change. So yes, people don't understand what value we can provide in terms of measuring our commitment to change, our, the usefulness that change management provides. Okay, do you see any pattern amongst projects that have CMs based on attributes of the project, e.g. location, culture, field, IT or non-IT? Where do they have CMs most? Oh, that's a difficult one. Again, that's up to the organization. I think if the organization recognizes that there is going to be a big change in the organization, there's going to be a big impact on the organization in terms of roles and responsibilities, in terms of changing organizational structures or anything, they will necessarily need a change manager. But even I've worked on projects which haven't needed a great deal of change management, but have still employed me as a change manager. Okay, so it really depends. And it also, I mean, one of the biggest issues, to be honest, is whether the project sponsor, the funder, the person who's going to pay for the project is willing to dip their hands in their pockets and put it in the budget. And that depends on whether they understand what change management is and how it can actually help with the success of the project. Again, sorry, mentioning my YouTube channel, video 8, which is my most popular video, actually deals with how to convince organizations that change management is a need as well as project management. So if you want to have a look at that, I've just put the links into I've just added the links into everywhere. Thank you, Ron. I think that's it. That's
Thank you.
And again, so I'm so sorry about the technical issues, but it kind of worked, didn't it?
I hope I could help a little bit.
No, Victor, you were brilliant. You picked up my, the way I do things quite quickly.
I tried my best. So we have a couple of minutes. So if anyone has a question, you can write it still. But as Ron mentioned, you can write an email to him, or reach out any platform, or you can reach out for me. I can forward your questions or thoughts to Ron as well.
What I'd like just to mention, I mentioned this to Victor, is that I'm going to get a copy of these questions, and I think there's a couple of good ones in there, and I might use them for my YouTube channel. I've done this for PMI chapters before, and I provide an answer to the question in about a 10 to 15 minute video, and it obviously goes into a bit more detail than what I've gone into today. So, if you want to have a look at the YouTube channel, please do. There's a lot of project management and change management related questions on there. And if you want to, subscribe.
Yeah. And Ron, if this video is done and uploaded, you can tell me, and I will tell the participants to have a look.
I'll email you or you've got the slides, okay?
Yes.
So you've got them in PDF and thingy. I'll email you those links if you want. So when you send out the slides to people, you can include those links in with it as well. Is that okay?
Okay, yes, sure.
I think at one point we had about 102 people, and regardless of the technical issues, they stayed with us, which was...
Yes, many of you stayed with us. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do say thank you for that. So, any more questions anyone can think of, or have you all done?
I don't see any new questions, just
okay.
Thank you messages. So again, I thank you, Ron.
Okay.
And for the participants, I will send a follow-up message in the PDU claim code.
Yeah, and sorry, just please don't forget to complete the survey, because what I use that for is to see if I can actually make the presentation better for the next session. Okay, it doesn't help this session, but it certainly helps the next session. Don't mention the technical issues. And the other thing is, if you want to link with me on LinkedIn, yeah, I'm going to send. I've put links in the chat function, and I'll also send them to Victor to send out with the thing. So please link with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to receive connection requests. No problem.
Okay, I will embed these informations in the follow-up mail. So,
okay.
Thank you again. Thank you for the presentation, Ron, and thank you all for being with us.
Goodbye, everybody. And once again, I'm not going to do it again, but I will do apologies for the technical issues. But thank you, Victor, for the two-man show.
Thank you too. So have a nice day.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers.